When people think of tribes considered wild, many picture intense heat and swarms of insects. But some communities face the extreme opposite, the freezing reality of the Arctic, where snow never melts and temperatures can drop as low as -70 degrees Celsius. Life there isn't just about fishing or hunting. It's about enduring relentless frost and constantly finding ways to keep warm day after day. Some of these people manage to withstand conditions that seem impossible. One group in particular resisted Russian influence for over 200 years, and even played a role in the sale of Alaska. Before discovering who they are, it's worth meeting the Yaghan, or Yaghanas, who live in Tierra del Fuego, an archipelago at the southern tip of South America, close to Antarctica. There, life revolves around isolated islands, rocky coastlines, biting winds, and icebergs drifting through the waters. Vegetation is scarce and clings tightly to the ground, desperate for any trace of warmth. In this harsh environment, the Yaghan develop techniques for living in canoes, covering their bodies with animal skins, and keeping fires burning to survive. This is just the first stop on our journey exploring peoples who brave extreme cold. The Yaghan, also known as Yaghanis, once lived on a group of islands where today almost no trace of their presence remains. They held out until the early 20th century, gradually becoming extinct. In the 18th century, Georg Forster and James Cook's expedition were the first Europeans to encounter them. Even in the intense cold, the Yaghan wore only strips of animal skin and lived in shelters made from branches and hides. At night, their campfires glowed in the distance, drawing the attention of passing ships. For a long time, the academic community overlooked these people. Otto von Kotzebue, a Russian explorer, even suggested they might have moved north after conflicts with other tribes, but there's no certainty about why they disappeared. What we do know is that the Yaghan learned to survive extreme conditions, thanks to an extra layer of body fat that helped them withstand the icy winds. Among them, those with sturdier builds had better chances of survival, highlighting how adaptation to the cold played a crucial role in their history. Anthropologist Stanislav Drabowski pointed out something interesting. Among the Yaghan, blood vessels were located deeper beneath the skin. This trait helped retain heat and protect vital organs. Thanks to this genetic feature, they could handle the snow without much trouble, while most people would need multiple layers of clothing to endure the cold. The Yaghan had built-in protection that made survival possible. Now think about those who live in the northernmost parts of the planet. Many people immediately think of Eskimos, who inhabit icy regions like Greenland, Canada, Alaska, and even the Chukotka Peninsula in Russia. Scientists classify them as Arctic Mongoloids, but the word Eskimo actually comes from Eskimen, meaning person who eats raw fish. Even though this term is still used in certain areas of Alaska and the Far East, these people themselves prefer to be called Yupik, meaning real person. In the far north of the planet, around 170,000 people managed to live in extremely harsh conditions, mainly in Greenland and Alaska. In Russia, this group is much smaller, with about 1,500 individuals. Despite the challenges, they preserve ancient traditions and lead a lifestyle in harmony with nature. In many communities, people are very close-knit, almost like everyone is gathered in one big campsite. These families share the same living space, meaning one house might have a couple, their children, and other relatives all living together. For sleeping arrangements, couples and kids usually stay in the center, while single individuals sleep closer to the edges. When it comes to marriage, most are monogamous, although sometimes a man might have two wives. Still, separations are rare since keeping the community stable is one of their highest priorities. In some parts of the world, community life revolves around a simple idea: cooperation. Everyone hunts together and shares what they catch, making sure nobody is left out. Collective decisions are standard, whether it's about building something new or choosing a place to live. When someone returns from a hunt with good prey, the meal is shared with whoever needs it. If someone prefers to live a little further away, that choice is respected without causing problems. There's also no conflict about items found without an owner. Whoever finds something can keep it. On days when hunting doesn't go well, families with more food invite others to share, keeping harmony intact. In cold, isolated places where these communities live without formal authority, every issue gets resolved immediately, leaving no room for prolonged arguments. Their local language doesn't even have swear words, and crime is virtually non-existent. In rare cases of murder, the victim's own family carries out a blood vengeance, an intense act, but seen as necessary to maintain order. In this way of life, everyone feels they're part of the same agreement, reinforcing bonds of solidarity and mutual respect. In some communities, family customs play a big role, especially for women. Before getting married, a daughter needs approval from her parents and sometimes even her brother. If the family doesn't agree, she stays at home. There's also the option for a man to capture a bride, as long as her parents agree, without the woman having any say. The wedding ceremony is pretty straightforward. She moves her belongings to her husband's home and starts living under his and his mother's authority. If something goes wrong, it's up to the husband to decide the punishment. Interestingly, children never get scolded or punished. In remote Arctic regions, groups who've been raising reindeer for generations face extreme conditions. For a long time, it was common for men to get lost while hunting, leaving women to lead the families. Even though there might be occasional disagreements, elders still hold a lot of respect. In these harsh environments, cooperation is essential for survival, since any carelessness or irresponsible action could have serious consequences. In a remote region of the far north, the Athabascans stand out for living in harmony with their environment and mastering the challenges of the Arctic climate. Their semi-underground homes help retain warmth during harsh winters and keep things cool in warmer months. During funerals, fire plays a role in purification, freeing the soul of the deceased. At birth, each child receives a secret name connected to a protective spirit, strengthening a spiritual bond passed down through generations. Athabascan spirituality is deeply connected to nature. The raven represents wisdom, while the coyote symbolizes cleverness and adaptability, and many people carry talismans featuring these animals to ward off negative energy. The Athabascan people tend to be reserved with visitors, reflecting painful losses in the past from diseases brought by outsiders. In such extreme areas, their ancestral knowledge is crucial for survival, and few know these secrets as well as they do. In Canada's far north, one community stands out for their ability to create and adapt to a challenging environment. These are the Inuit, a group of over 64,000 people living mainly in Nunavut, where the average age is just 24. To deal with the constant cold, they've come up with some remarkable inventions, like goggles made from animal bones and antlers to protect their eyes from harsh sunlight. They also invented the first snowshoes and kayaks, known worldwide for their effectiveness on icy terrain. In Cape Dorset, a town in Nunavut, their talents become even more apparent. Soapstone carvings, fabrics made from natural materials, and traditional throat singing showcase Inuit art and spirituality. Another example of their creativity is the stone figures called inuksuk, used as landmarks to guide travelers through frozen landscapes. Besides living in northern Canada, Inuit communities are also found in Alaska and Greenland. They speak Inuktitut, a language with 5 main dialects, and have developed 2 writing systems, one based on the Roman alphabet, and another syllabic script they created themselves. This blend of tradition, innovation, and cultural expression highlights the significance of the Inuit people, who remain firmly rooted in their identity, even in the most challenging conditions. In the frozen reaches of the Arctic, the Inuit travel across snow on sleds pulled by Kimik dogs, a breed now at risk of disappearing. Hunting is a regular part of their daily lives, targeting animals like wolves, seals, walruses, and even whales. This lifestyle shows just how much they rely on their environment, something clearly reflected in their diet: dried reindeer meat, raw seal brains, and caribou liver. examples of adaptations that have endured for centuries. Heading to Northern Europe, we arrive in the land of the Sami people, mostly found in Norway, Finland, and Sweden. For a long time, they were called Lapps, a term made popular by the Vikings and adopted by Scandinavians and Russians, giving rise to the name Lapland. This region is famous for being Santa Claus's home, who himself is portrayed as Sami. The history of the Sami people continues to intrigue many, as they survived by fishing, hunting, and gathering long before having contact with outsiders. Over time, they were pushed further north, faced attacks from different tribes, and dealt with alcoholism, which traders exploited for profit. The Sami live in a land known for harsh winters and frozen landscapes. But the weather wasn't the only challenge they had to face. For decades, forced assimilation policies in Sweden and Norway brought drastic changes, even replacing the language taught in schools. In many parts of southern Lapland, they were forced to leave their ancestral lands, change their names, and learn Norwegian just to have the basic right to own a piece of land. In Finland, the process called Finnicization was less aggressive, but still left deep scars on their culture and language. Even with all this pressure, the Sami resisted, fighting hard to keep their traditions alive in a rapidly changing world. Meanwhile, in Alaska, the Tlingit faced equally tough challenges. Besides coping with a hostile environment, they had to deal with the presence of a powerful foreign nation. The name Tlingit means person, reflecting how much they value their identity, something they've proudly preserved for centuries, despite the constant hardships they've endured. The story of these people stands out because of the struggles they've faced over the centuries. In the past, they had widespread influence over the region and were known for being fierce warriors. When the Russians arrived, they initially tried to trade, but poor colonial management and pressure from newcomers increased tensions. Between 1802 and 1805, an armed conflict intensified, causing major trouble for Russia. Their deep knowledge of the land gave the Tlingit a huge advantage, because they knew exactly how to defend themselves. Their physical resilience was remarkable. From childhood, they dealt with freezing waters and harsh winters, making them almost completely resistant to extremely cold temperatures. After the war ended, things calmed down, but the determination of the Tlingit continued. Instead of large-scale battles, they adopted targeted tactics, making it difficult for Russia to fully control the area. This persistence eventually influenced Russia's decision to sell Alaska to the United States in 1867. Today, Tlingit identity is still alive and strong, showing how a community can honor its roots despite hardships. We've reached the end of this journey through the Arctic and other frozen lands, where cultures have adapted to extreme cold and united in the name of survival. This story highlights the importance of appreciating cultural diversity and rethinking the role each community plays in our richly diverse world. Thanks for staying with me until now, and I'll see you in the next video.